January 11, 2026. Iran stands at a crossroads, gripped by a crisis that has shaken the very foundations of the nation. The air in Tehran is thick with tension, as uncertainty and fear mingle with hope and defiance. The world's eyes are fixed on this ancient land, watching history unfold in real time. From the bustling heart of Tehran to the quietest corners of remote provinces, the streets have erupted in protest. People from all walks of life, students, workers, mothers, and elders, have poured into the streets, united by a shared sense of injustice and a longing for change. Their chants echo through the night, demanding to be heard. In a desperate attempt to regain control, the government has plunged the nation into a digital blackout, cutting off internet and phone lines, hoping to silence dissent and isolate the movement. Streets that once buzzed with online chatter now sit in eerie silence. Yet the movement only grows stronger, fueled by determination and a refusal to be silenced. What began as frustration over rising prices and economic hardship has transformed into something far greater, a direct challenge to the very core of the Islamic Republic. The anger in the streets is no longer just about bread or jobs, but about dignity, justice, and the right to shape their own future. Iranians are risking everything. They march not just for daily necessities, but for freedom, for their children's future, and for a new government that truly represents their hopes and dreams. Each face in the crowd tells a story of courage and sacrifice. Despite the blackout, brave citizens find ways to leak videos and messages to the outside world, using every tool at their disposal. These glimpses reveal a nation on the edge, its people determined to make their voices heard, no matter the cost. The world watches with bated breath, knowing that Iran's fate will send shockwaves across the Middle East and beyond. Governments, journalists, and ordinary people everywhere are glued to the unfolding drama, aware that the outcome here could reshape the region's future. The people's fight for dignity and change is far from over. In the face of overwhelming odds, their courage lights a path forward, reminding the world that the desire for freedom can never truly be extinguished. The spark for Iran's unrest? Economic collapse. The rial has crashed to historic lows, wiping out savings and making daily life a struggle for millions. UN sanctions, reimposed over Iran's nuclear program, have isolated the country, driving up prices for food and medicine. But sanctions aren't the only culprit. Years of corruption and mismanagement have left essential services in ruins. Instead of investing at home, the government poured resources into military adventures abroad, fueling public outrage. The result, a total loss of trust between people and rulers. The protests are about more than high prices. They're about a broken system. Iranians demand not just relief, but a new way forward. Iran's protests unfold in the shadow of a humiliating war with Israel just months ago. The 12-day conflict exposed Iran's vulnerabilities. Key nuclear sites and air defenses were destroyed by US and Israeli strikes. The regime's image of strength shattered, emboldening protesters who now see a weakened government. The war's psychological toll is deep. Fear of renewed conflict and a sense of national insecurity fuel the unrest. The government's failure to protect the nation has eroded its legitimacy. With military, economic, and social crises converging, the regime faces pressure from all sides. The cracks in the government's armor are widening. Protesters sense that change is finally within reach. For decades, Iran's regional power and influence were anchored by what it called the axis of resistance, a web of militant groups and political allies stretching across the Middle East. This alliance, which included powerful organizations like Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and various militias in Iraq and Syria, was designed to project Iranian power far beyond its borders and challenge Western and Israeli interests in the region. Through this network, Iran could shape conflicts, deter adversaries, and maintain a sense of strategic depth. But years of relentless warfare have taken a heavy toll. The ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict, the devastating civil war in Syria, and the recent direct confrontations with Israel have battered these groups, leaving them weakened and exhausted. Iran's resources, once used to fund and arm its allies, have been stretched to the breaking point, as the cost of sustaining these proxy wars mounts ever higher. Today, Iran's allies, once seen as formidable forces, are now stretched thin, struggling to maintain their operations and unable to shield Iran from direct threats. Hezbollah faces mounting losses and pressure in Lebanon, while the Houthis in Yemen are bogged down in a grinding conflict with little hope of victory. Even in Iraq and Syria, Iranian-backed militias are facing new challenges from local rivals and international actors. The enormous cost of supporting this axis has become a source of growing public anger inside Iran. Ordinary Iranians, already struggling with economic hardship, see their nation's wealth funneled abroad while they face rising prices, unemployment, and a declining quality of life. Protests have erupted, with citizens demanding that the government prioritize domestic needs over costly foreign adventures. As a result, the regime's regional influence is fading fast. Once a key player in Middle Eastern affairs, Iran now finds itself increasingly isolated on the world stage, with fewer allies willing or able to support its ambitions. With its foreign adventures faltering and its proxies weakened, the government is being forced to turn inward, focusing on maintaining control at home and addressing the growing discontent among its own people. The loss of regional power has stripped the regime of a key tool for rallying nationalist support and distracting from domestic problems. Without victories abroad, it becomes harder to unite the population behind the government's cause. Now, facing its greatest challenge yet, Iran's leadership must confront a new reality, one where the protective shield of its former alliances has crumbled and the regime stands more vulnerable and alone than ever before. The regime's answer to protest? Brutal force. Security forces, Revolutionary Guard, besieged militia, have unleashed live ammunition, tear gas, and beatings on unarmed crowds. Hundreds are reported dead, including children, with the true toll likely much higher. The deadliest crackdowns target ethnic minority regions, aiming to terrorize and silence. Supreme Leader Khamenei calls protesters enemies of God, a charge that can mean death. Mass arrests include children. Torture and forced confessions are feared. Hospitals are raided to hide casualties, preventing funerals that could spark more unrest. The regime's violence only deepens public anger and resolve. Each act of repression fuels the demand for change. The world cannot ignore Iran's bloody crackdown. The U.S. under President Trump has issued a stark warning. If the regime massacres protesters, America may intervene militarily. The recent U.S. capture of Venezuela's Maduro, a key Iranian ally, shows this is no idle threat. Tehran faces a dilemma: crush dissent and risk war, or relent and risk losing power. Iranian leaders threaten retaliation against U.S. troops and Israel if attacked, raising the stakes for the entire region. The regime is cornered by both internal revolt and external threats. The world waits to see which path Iran's leaders will choose. The fate of millions and regional stability hangs in the balance. These protests are unprecedented in both their scale and diversity, marking a turning point in Iran's modern history. Never before have so many people from such varied backgrounds come together with a shared sense of purpose. The streets are filled with Iranians of all ages, genders, and walks of life, united by a common desire for change and justice. Every province is involved: Tehran, Mashhad, the Kurdish and Lur regions, and many more, each adding its own voice to the growing chorus of dissent. From the bustling capital to remote towns, the movement has swept across the nation, transcending ethnic, religious, and class divisions. The unity on display is remarkable, as people who may have once felt isolated now find themselves part of a nationwide uprising. Merchants shutter their shops in solidarity, factory workers walk out in protest, university students fill campuses with chants, and middle-class families march side by side. This broad coalition has made the movement impossible for authorities to ignore. The participation of so many different groups signals a deep, widespread dissatisfaction with the status quo, and a collective yearning for a better future. Slogans have shifted from economic grievances to bold demands for fundamental rights. Woman, life, freedom has become the rallying cry, echoing through the streets and symbolizing a broader struggle for human dignity. Iranian women, often at the forefront, lead chants and inspire others, while crowds openly call for an end to the theocracy and the creation of a more just society. Some demonstrators even call for the return of the Shah's son, Reza Pahlavi, seeing him as a symbol of secular change and a break from decades of religious rule. His image appears on posters and banners, reflecting a longing for a different kind of leadership, one that many hope will bring stability and freedom. Despite government crackdowns, violence, and frequent internet blackouts, Iranians have found creative ways to organize and share information. Young people use smartphones and satellite internet to bypass censorship, spreading news and coordinating protests. These digital tools have become lifelines, connecting activists within Iran and with supporters around the world. Each crackdown by the authorities only seems to strengthen the protesters' resolve. Scenes of riot police and tear gas are met with courage and determination. Injured demonstrators are quickly aided by fellow citizens, showing a powerful sense of solidarity and mutual care. What began as isolated acts of defiance has grown into a revolution of aspirations. Hopeful youth light up the night with their phone flashlights, and crowds wave peace signs, signaling their vision for a peaceful, democratic future. The energy and optimism are palpable, even in the face of adversity. The cry for dignity and freedom now echoes across the nation, uniting millions in a powerful demand for change. This movement is not just about protest, it is about hope, resilience, and the unbreakable spirit of the Iranian people. Iran's rulers are at a breaking point. Supreme Leader Khamenei, 86, demands a harsh crackdown, but his rigidity only fuels unrest. President Pezeshkian's conciliatory tone is powerless. Hardliners control the real levers of authority. The regime's token gestures, cash handouts, leadership shuffles, are too little, too late. Reports of dissent within the security forces suggest cracks in the regime's foundation. Some police and soldiers hesitate to fire on fellow citizens, a dangerous sign for the government. The leadership is torn to suppress dissent with violence, or seek relief through negotiations with the West. Talks on the nuclear program signal desperation for sanctions relief. The regime is running out of options and time. Iran's future is uncertain, balanced on a knife's edge. The regime may double down on repression, risking civil war or foreign intervention. Internal fractures could force reform, but hardliners still hold the reins. The most hopeful outcome, a people's victory, would bring both liberation and chaos, as rival visions for Iran's future collide. Transition will be fraught, but for the first time in decades, hope is alive. The world watches as Iranians dare to dream of freedom,